I still remember sitting alone in the corner of my mother's living room, a worn paperback in my hands, while the rest of my family buzzed around preparing for my brother's engagement party. My mother walked past me, paused, and sighed loud enough for everyone to hear. She told the guests that her younger son still plays with books like a child. I had no idea that in just a few hours a simple Google search would change everything. Before I tell you what happened at that engagement party, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever felt invisible in your own family. Now let me take you back to the moment everything changed. My name is Woodrow, and for 34 years I have been the disappointment of the Harrison family. At least that is what my mother Barbara has always believed. Growing up in our two-story house in suburban Illinois, I was the quiet kid who preferred libraries to Little League, while my older brother Derek dominated the football field and brought home trophies that filled an entire shelf in the living room. I spent my weekends lost in worlds created by words. My father understood. He was the one who introduced me to Hemingway when I was 12, who stayed up late discussing plot structures and character arcs with me, who told me that stories have the power to change lives. But my father passed away 8 years ago, and with him went the only person in my family who ever truly saw me. My mother is a strong woman, I will give her that. After my father's death, she held the family together through sheer force of will. But somewhere along the way, her definition of success became very narrow. Success meant a corner office. Success meant a luxury car in the driveway. Success meant something she could brag about to her book club and her neighbors. Derek fit that definition perfectly. At 37, he had become a partner at a prestigious law firm in Chicago. He drove a Mercedes, owned a penthouse with a view of Lake Michigan, and dated women who looked like they stepped out of magazine covers. Every family gathering revolved around his achievements. Every phone call from my mother included an update on his latest triumph. And then there was me. To my mother, I was the son who never quite figured it out. The one who moved to Portland, Oregon, and lived in a modest apartment. The one who, when asked about my career, would simply say, "I work with books." She interpreted that as working at a bookstore, maybe shelving inventory or running a cash register. She never asked for details. She did not want to know. What she did not know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I am W. Harrison Cole. That name might not mean anything to you, or it might mean everything. W. Harrison Cole is the author of 4 novels, 2 of which hit the New York Times bestseller list. My third book, The Silence Between Words, was called one of the most compelling works of literary fiction this decade by Time magazine. My latest novel, Echoes of Home, was currently being adapted into a major motion picture by a studio in Hollywood. I had earned more money from my writing than Derek would see in 10 years of practicing law, but nobody knew. I kept it that way on purpose. You see, when my first book started gaining traction, I was excited. I wanted to share the news with my family. I drove all the way from Portland to Illinois, ready to tell them that their bookworm son had actually accomplished something. But when I arrived, I walked into a conversation that stopped me cold. My mother was on the phone with her sister, laughing about how I was still wasting my time with that writing nonsense. She said she wished I could be more like Derek, that at least he had the sense to pursue a real career. I never told her. I decided right then that I would wait. I would see if my family could love me for who I was, not for what I achieved. It became a test, one that they failed over and over again. So when my mother called to inform me about Derek's engagement party, her voice carrying that familiar tone of obligation rather than warmth, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay in Portland to avoid another weekend of being overlooked and criticized. But another part of me, the part that still remembered my father's encouraging words, decided to go. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe. I booked a flight to Chicago and packed light. Just a small suitcase and my backpack, which always contained at least 2 books. Books were my armor, my escape, my constant companions in a family that never understood me. As the plane lifted off from Portland International Airport, I looked out the window at the clouds below and wondered what the next few days would bring. I had no idea that a woman I had never met was about to unravel the secret I had kept for years. The taxi pulled up to my mother's house on a crisp Saturday afternoon in October. The maple trees that lined the street had turned brilliant shades of orange and gold, and the neighborhood looked like something from a postcard. Expensive cars filled the driveway and spilled onto the street. Through the windows I could see people moving around inside the house, alive with activity. I paid the driver, grabbed my bags, and stood on the sidewalk for a moment, gathering my courage. The front door opened before I could reach it. My mother stood in the doorway, her silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a navy blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her eyes traveled from my face down to my worn canvas jacket and scuffed shoes. Her lips pressed together in that familiar expression of disapproval. "Come in," she said. "The guests are waiting. No hello, no hug, no how was your flight? Just come in and try not to embarrass me." I stepped inside and was immediately hit by the smell of expensive perfume and catered food. The living room was packed with people I vaguely recognized from past family gatherings, plus many faces I had never seen. Derek's colleagues, probably. His world of corporate lawyers and their polished spouses. Derek himself was across the room, surrounded by a group of admirers hanging on his every word. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confident posture that came from a lifetime of being told he was exceptional. He caught my eye and waved briefly before turning back to his conversation. That was it. That was my welcome from my only brother. I found an empty chair in the corner of the living room, set down my backpack, and pulled out a book. It was a defense mechanism I had developed years ago. When you are reading, people assume you are busy. They leave you alone. And being left alone was far better than the alternative. About an hour into the party, someone approached my corner. I looked up from my book and saw a woman I did not recognize. She was in her early 30s, with warm brown eyes and dark hair pulled back in an elegant twist. She smiled at me, and there was something genuine in that smile, something that felt rare in this house. "You must be Woodrow," she said, extending her hand. "I am Amanda, Derek's fiancée." I shook her hand and offered a small smile in return. "Nice to meet you. Congratulations on the engagement." "Thank you." She glanced at the book in my hands. "Derek mentioned he had a brother, but he did not tell me much." "What do you do?" I hesitated for just a moment. "I work with books," I said, giving her the same vague answer I gave everyone. Her eyes lit up with interest. "Really? Like publishing, writing? I love books." "What kind of work specifically?" Before I could answer, Derek appeared at her side, his hand possessive on her shoulder. "Babe, the Hendersons want to meet you. They are thinking about using our firm for their corporate restructuring." Amanda gave me an apologetic look. "We should talk more later," she said as Derek guided her away. I watched them go, then returned to my book. But I noticed Amanda glance back at me twice before disappearing into the crowd. There was curiosity in her eyes, the kind that suggested she was not satisfied with my non-answer. The evening wore on, and with it came the moments I had been dreading. It started at the buffet table. My Aunt Margaret, my mother's older sister, cornered me while I was reaching for a dinner roll. "Woodrow," she said loudly, "how is the job hunt going? Your mother mentioned you are still trying to find your path." "I am doing fine, Aunt Margaret. I have steady work." She patted my arm condescendingly. "Well, keep at it. Not everyone can be as successful as your brother, but I am sure you will find something eventually." I took my plate and retreated to my corner, appetite gone. But that was just the beginning. During dinner, my mother stood to make a toast. She spoke for nearly 10 minutes about Derek, his accomplishments, his character, his bright future, his wonderful choice of a bride. The guests clapped and cheered. Then someone asked about me. "And your other son, Barbara, what is Woodrow up to these days?" My mother's smile flickered. She cleared her throat. "Woodrow is still finding his way," she said carefully. "He has always been more of a dreamer than a doer. But we love him anyway." A few people chuckled. Derek smirked into his wineglass. I felt my face burn, but I kept my expression neutral. I had years of practice. After dinner, I found my mother alone in the kitchen arranging desserts on a platter. I approached her, hoping for a private moment, hoping that maybe away from the crowd she would be different. "Mom," I said quietly, "can we talk?" She did not look up. "What is it, Woodrow? I just wanted to check in, see how you are doing." She finally met my eyes, and her gaze was weary. "I am fine. I would be better if you could make an effort to socialize instead of hiding in corners with your books. People are starting to ask questions." "What kind of questions about what you do?" "About why a man your age does not have a real career." She sighed heavily. "Can you not just once make me proud? Look at your brother. Look at everything he has accomplished." "Mom," I started, but she cut me off. "Reading books does not pay bills, Woodrow. It does not build a future. When are you going to grow up and face reality?" I stood there, her words hitting me like physical blows. Part of me wanted to tell her everything right then, to pull up my Wikipedia page on my phone and watch her expression change, but I knew that if I did, her sudden pride would be hollow, She would love my success, not me. I walked away without another word and stepped onto the back porch for air. The night was cold and I could see my breath in the dim light. I thought about my father, about how different things would be if he were still here. He would be sitting beside me right now, talking about books and life and everything that mattered. He would see me, really see me, the way nobody else in this family ever had. I did not notice Amanda watching me through the glass door, her expression thoughtful, her phone already in her hand. Amanda had always been curious by nature. It was what made her good at her job in marketing, the ability to dig deeper, to find the story behind the surface. And something about Woodrow did not add up. Derek had described his brother as a loser, a failure, someone who could not hold down a job and spent his days reading novels like a teenager. But the man Amanda had met did not seem like a loser. There was intelligence in his eyes, a quiet dignity in the way he held himself despite his family's obvious contempt. And that answer he gave, "I work with books," felt deliberately vague, like he was hiding something. While Derek entertained guests with stories about his latest legal victory, Amanda excused herself and found a quiet corner. She pulled out her phone and typed Woodrow Harrison into the search bar. The results were unremarkable. A few social media profiles that did not match some random people with similar names. Nothing that stood out. She tried Woodrow Harrison writer. Still nothing definitive. Then she remembered something. Derek's family name was Harrison.